Are the Mad Rock drones the best climbing shoes on the market? Today, we're diving all in with an honest climbing shoe review to help you decide if these guys live up to the hype. Hey guys, my name's Alex Tighe. Today we're doing things a little bit differently here on the channel because we're doing a climbing shoe review of the Mad Rock Drone 2 Low Volumes. I've been getting a lot of questions on my social networks lately, and I figured that if people are sending me messages there, then there are lots of folks out there wondering more about these shoes. Before we dive too far in, I want to just share a little disclaimer. Mad Rock has in no way, shape, or form sponsored me to make this video. All the thoughts that I'm sharing with you today are things that I would tell you if I was meeting you at the crag. Let's get started. Here with me today, I've got a bunch of different climbing shoes that I've used over the years so we can compare and contrast with the Mad Rock Drone 2 Low Volumes. One of the first things that you're going to notice is the shape and just the amount of rubber that this thing has. If you look at the bottom, it has this concave sole, which kind of like pulls your foot into the shoe and puts your toes here at the end of the toe box. For me, it's always difficult to find a climbing shoe that fits my foot just because I have a very narrow, almost a more feminine style foot, and I find that I usually have airbags on the sides. The Mad Rock Drone Low Volume wasn't the case for me. Flipping over to the top, we'll notice that from the toes all the way to where the ankle goes into the shoe, we've got a whole lot of rubber. One thing that I really like about this rubber is that it's quite hard and durable, which is great for getting toe hooks. Here, going to the back, of course, the Mad Rock heel is one of the things that they've gotten known for, and the drone is very powerful in this aspect. It's like having a little edge that you can pull on, and once you learn how to use it, it's like having an extra crimp, but on the back of your foot. The heel box is very narrow compared to other shoes. I'll pull these Otakis here, and you'll see that this can come in handy, especially when the handhold or the foothold that you're trying to heel hook on is narrow. The closure is just a simple one-strap Velcro. Opens up like this, and it has a pretty comfy, almost sock-like thing that you can pull up. So getting them on and off is quite easy. People always ask when talking about new climbing shoes is, what size do I get? How do I know what size climbing shoes to buy? That is a difficult question, and sometimes you have to do a little bit of experimenting, but to give you guys a little bit of perspective, I wear a size US 8 in almost every brand that you can think of, so that transfers over to European size 41. Here, I'm a huge fan of La Sportiva Miras, the women's model. This has been one of my go-to shoes for 3 or 4 years now. I downsize 4 sizes in this on the European scale. So I buy a 37 and I fit into them quite comfortably. I also have used quite successfully in the past this very beat up La Sportiva Squama, and it's also a size 37. In comparison, this is the Mad Rock Drone. I did not size down at all. If we hold the two shoes up, here's the Mira, here's the Mad Rock Drone. Look at the difference in this, and look at the difference here. Now, when I was trying these on at the demo where I decided that I was actually going to go all in and get these guys, I tried to downsize, and the sales rep was like, oh no, I don't think you're going to want to do that. And I should have listened to him. He was absolutely right. I couldn't downsize even a half size. I tried on the 40s and the 40 and a half, so I think that would be a 7.5, 7.5 in US sizes, and I couldn't get my foot in the shoe at all. So I was basically looking at yes or yes, getting my same street shoe size. I was a little bit worried at first, to be honest, that after some usage that these things were going to stretch and become super big, but I've been using them since last January. Now we're in September, so about 9 months of pretty heavy usage. Anytime I have a heel hook or toe hook, I'm using the Mad Rock Drone 2 Low Volumes, and they haven't stretched a whole lot. I'm still finding them to be the correct size, and I would say that if you're used to downsizing and climbing in tight shoes, err on the safer side, don't downsize too much. What about the performance of the Mad Rock drones? Let's break this into some pros and cons. For me, what I absolutely love about this shoe is, of course, the heel hook. As you can see here, it's got the edge like I mentioned before, and it's incredibly thin. The rubber is thick, all around the sides. And it is very, very durable in terms of a climbing shoe. If we compare that with the La Sportiva Squama that has a piece of rubber here for the toe hooks, it's very, very flimsy. So what ends up happening, sure, these things will give you a pretty good toe hook at first, but after you start to repeat the movement over and over and over, you're gonna get sores on the back of your toes. When I'm using the Mad Rock drones, I absolutely love that the rubber is stiffer, so I can have many more goes at the same movement before I start to have pain. At the same time, the rubber goes all the way down and around the sides, so if you're doing heel-toe cams, where you're sticking the heel in and twisting the foot to get some friction against the rock or your hold, then this has a lot of grip on the sides, and on this side too. If you've ever tried a Mad Rock shoe before, of course you're going to notice that it has that concave shape, which is great on overhangs. It's like having a kind of a crow's beak on your foot to pull into the wall and give you that power to just edge in with your toes. And it's pretty comfortable to wear. It's easy to get on, easy to get off, and it doesn't change shape, at least in my opinion, in terms of the temperatures. So that's one thing that I really love. And of course, these straps that you have for pulling the shoe on, they seem to be pretty durable. If you look at other shoes like these, I've absolutely destroyed my La Sportiva Squamas and they're falling apart. But the Mad Rock drone is not doing that. The cons of the Mad Rock drone 2 low volumes, for me, there aren't a whole lot, to be honest. I would say the number one thing is that the rubber on the sole is incredibly hard. So it doesn't bend a whole lot compared to a softer shoe like this, whereas if you're climbing a friction-dependent slab, you're going to be able to stick the toe and the shoe's going to bend. Here, you'll see that the Mad Rock drone, the concave sole on the bottom keeps it from bending quite as much. So if you really want to get this part of the shoe on the rock to get a whole lot of rubber, that might not be the best choice for that route. But on the flip side, as soon as you get into an overhang, this thing really prevails. One other thing that I found different from other climbing shoes is that the break-in period for the Mad Rock drones was quite long, and I would say it took me probably about 6 or 7 weeks of trying them before I was able to get that feeling, I guess we would call it, with the toes. So in comparison to a softer shoe like the Squamas or the Miras that are like a 3 to 4 week break-in period, I did have to use them quite a bit. To Mad Rock's defense, anytime you do switch climbing shoes, there's kind of a learning curve because it's like learning how to use a new tool. So for me, I was really interested in this heel and the rubber here on the top of the toes for toe hooking. So I kind of stuck with it and I learned how to use the shoe, and once I kind of pushed through that learning curve that was longer than other shoes, I absolutely fell in love with them. How do the Mad Rock drones compare to other climbing shoes? Over the years, I've used quite a bit of shoes. My first pair of aggressive shoes were the 510 Dragons, and this was an absolute wash for me in terms of just, it was a terrible shoe. It didn't fit me at all, probably because I downsized a little bit too much. But even then, I found that the toes were too crunched here up at the top. The shoe ended up getting flat pretty quickly, and then one problem I always had with the 510 was the shape of this heel. So I always had this kind of like airbag here at the back at the beginning. If you look at the heel shape of the Mad Rock drone, it is much straighter, I guess more perpendicular. So for me, it doesn't have as much of an air bubble here at the bottom of the shoe. One other shoe to give you guys a little comparison I tried over the years that was an absolute dud were the La Sportiva Otakis. These things, they were just too hard for me. I'm a lighter climber. I weigh about 135 pounds, so these things I just never had sensation in my toes when I was pushing down. And I always found with the La Sportiva, the Solution heel cup, the Squama, and the Otakis is this rounded heel cup. It just doesn't have a good grip on little surfaces when you're climbing outside especially, which is what I'm most interested in. My final thoughts on the Mad Rock Drone 2 low volumes. I think this is an incredibly powerful tool that you should have in your climber toolbox. I've always been a proponent of selecting the correct tool to get the job done. For me, anytime I'm doing a heel hook, toe hook, or cam type movement, these are the shoes that I'm going for. That being said, I also like having other shoes in my bag just in case that I need to try different things out. But this is the only product so far that I've tried from Mad Rock, and they've got me sold. I think that Mad Rock probably does have some other models that will fit my needs in terms of having softer shoes. I know the Sharks have been super popular lately. I haven't tried the high volumes, and I haven't tried the drone comps. For me, I think that if you have a narrow foot like mine, I don't think you're going to go wrong, especially if you have access to a place where you can try these things on first. If you found any part of this video helpful today, please give us a like, leave me a comment below where you're coming from, and until next time, happy Sin Timber, happy climbing.